Okay, everyone, it is time to get started. My name is Jordan Fields. I am the Aspen product librarian, and today I am talking to you about Aspen and events as part of our Explore the Possibilities webinar series. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about how events fit in with Aspen goals. Then we're going to talk a little bit about why you might want to put events in your catalog and the different things that Aspen can do with events. We'll talk more about the different platforms that Aspen integrates with. And then I'll show you a few different examples of how maybe looking at events from a patron's point of view works, and then also how it works from the administrator's point of view and the things that they might want to do with Aspen. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Okay. So we'd like to start off our webinars with the Aspen Discovery goals and how they relate to the topic that we're talking about that day. So with Aspen and events, and goal number 1, create a unified experience through deep integration with all library technologies. So for most libraries, events are really important enough to deserve their own event platform. And that is what I would consider a library technology, and making sure that that platform integrates with your discovery is super important. Goal number 2, maximize user engagement with the library. There's a couple of different ways we do this with events. So number 1 is, well, we've already said, getting them into the catalog, getting them to where users can see them so they have the opportunity to engage with them. And also giving them things to do with events in the catalog. So you can actually manage your events from the catalog, add any events that you're interested in to your events, and we'll go through all of that today. Goal number 3 is to connect every user with a personalized and accessible library home base. The goal here is that they come to the catalog and they can see all of their interactions with the library, everything that they're doing, everything that they want to track with the library, and events are a part of that. So we need that event integration. And finally, empower library administrators to customize and expand Aspen. So this gives your marketing people, your collection management people, the opportunity to do more with events than they would if the events were just off in their own silo, and there was no way to kind of get them into the catalog where the patrons are already. Okay, so a little bit more about why you might want to add events to your catalog. So events show up within Aspen when you have this integration through a keyword search. So what that means is we're not just throwing our most popular events or our biggest events at your eyeballs and hoping that they stick. We're going to show you those events when they're relevant to what you're already thinking about. Maybe it's a topic, maybe it's knitting or Scrabble and you have clubs for those things. Maybe it's an author event like we'll look at today. So when a patron is already thinking about that, interested in it, then it's a little bit easier to grab their attention. So that's what I mean by promotion in context. Patrons can track and manage events. So all they have to do when they see it is click yes, add to my events, and then they can go back and visit it later. This just makes it super easy for the patron. It's not like they're trying to write it down. They know that they can come back, see more about that event later, anytime from their account. For marketing people within library staff, events can be added to lists and to saved searches, intermingled with those lists with other types of content. And then those lists and saved searches can be used for things like browse categories, collection spotlights. I'm going to show you some examples today, but we've had some libraries do some really imaginative things here in order to make sure that they can get the word out about events to their patrons. And finally, something that I consider really important is that events appear throughout the catalog in a way that makes sense. So we know people are coming to the catalog probably looking for books. We don't want to throw a whole bunch of events at them within those books. That's going to be super confusing and probably not what they want. But we do want the opportunity to show them that there might be something else that they're interested in through our Explore More bar primarily, and we'll take a look at that today. So I do want to say before we get started that we integrate currently with 3 different event platforms. So that means that you work with these platforms for events, and then through a connection with Aspen, we are able to pull in that event information. The first is LibCal from SpringShare, and we have a great API integration with them. attend from Communico, and we have a brand new API integration with them. So we just went live on that a month or two ago, but also lots of bells and whistles. It's great. The third one is Library Calendar from Library Market. This one's a little bit more limited because they don't have the same extensive APIs that the others do, but we are able, anyone that has Library Calendar, you can do almost all of the same things within Aspen Events. Okay. So before we get into showing you what these events look like, I think it's easier to understand if you put yourself in the shoes of someone who is using the catalog, either whether it's a patron or a staff person. So I'm going to introduce you to a couple of people here, and then we're going to look at Aspen through those eyes, through their eyes. So the first is Candace. Candace is a mom of 24-month-old Anthony. You can see them right there, and he is adorable. They just moved to Cambridge, Minnesota, so they're brand new in a town, and she is looking to meet other moms, find community, just really get some connections because she's so new. The second person that we're going to look at Aspen through the eyes of is Miguel. Miguel is a marketing manager for the main library in Anytown, USA. And their library just got a big win. The author, Sandra Brown, is coming to the library to give a presentation, and it's Miguel's job to make sure that everyone who's interested knows about this event, that they have a great turnout, and that they can just really make sure. It'd be super disappointing for someone to find out after the fact that Sandra Brown was in town and not get to come, so he needs to make sure that everyone knows about it. So yeah, he's responsible for all of the marketing and outreach for the library. So without further ado, I am going to take you in. So we're going to start with Candace. Like I said, Candace is new to her hometown, or not hometown, is in a brand new town. And at her previous town, she made a lot of connections through the library, specifically through story time. It was a great, fun thing for Anthony to do, and also just a way for her to meet people. So as soon as she comes to town, she thinks, okay, I need to get connected to the library. I need to know whether or not they have story time. She learns what her library is, comes to the library website, and she's just going to search for story time. And immediately you see some things around story time. Now, the first thing here doesn't actually have to do with our events integration, but it is a wonderful way to promote events within the catalog. This is called a placard, and you can link it to anywhere on the web. So this just links to more information about their story time. Again, just another marketing tool within Aspen, but not necessarily part of the events integration. Even if you don't have one of those event platforms that I talked about earlier, you can always do a placard to your events. Where we do have the tighter integration is if you scroll down here to this Explore More bar. Now, I talked about how we wanted to make sure that the patron could see it without it getting confused, without the patron getting confused with other materials in the catalog. And that's what this Explore More bar does. It's very clear that these are the books, above and below, but that this is additional content. With events, we typically promote two pieces here in Explore More bar. One is the first relevant event. So all we know here is story time. And then the second is a link to all of the events within the catalog so they could explore all of them. We do have a separate index for events that can be searched. We just know patrons are never going to do it. They're just going to go to that search box, throw in a search term, and then this is what they're going to get that's going to direct them there. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and open this event in a new tab so you can see what it looks like. So here, baby story time with ECFE from Cambridge. Kind of a lucky break. This is exactly, the town that our patron is in is Cambridge. So if I am Candace, I am reading this and I'm seeing ages birth to 23 months. That's kind of borderline. Anthony's 24 months. We could probably make this work. So what I'm going to do is add this to my events. It tells me the event was added successfully. So I now know I have that saved. Just to let you know where this information is coming from, all of the information on this page is being pulled from the event integration. In this case, it is libcal. So we're pulling in the image, we're pulling in all of the description, we're pulling in the metadata. None of this has to be entered by library staff. You enter it over in your event platform, and it is all pulled in over here. We also down here have the categories, audiences, and these can be used for faceting, which we'll show you in a minute. Okay. So I've added that one event. I also see maybe instead of that event, I click on this event. So I'm going to open that in a new tab too, so we can see it in a separately. Okay, this brings me into my event index. So the tables are kind of turned here. If you look up here, instead of searching library catalog, which is the default, it has me searching in events. Now, I don't ever expect a patron to change this. That's why we have Explore More bar, but they can end up over here and be searching events if that's what they want to do. So if I'm Candace, I'm thinking, okay, that last event seemed a little borderline. Maybe Anthony's a little old for it. But I see I have these facets over here. If he is 24 months, I'm going to go ahead and click on toddlers. And then it's going to narrow my events to just events for toddlers. And then I said I moved to Cambridge, so I have the branch down here, and I can go ahead and click on Cambridge. And again, the search carries through, so I'm only looking at Storytime events. Okay, so I have a few more events here, and these should all be a little bit more appropriate for Anthony. So let's look at this one. Join us for a special story time around the Cambridge area. This sounds fantastic. Story time around the town, like exactly what I want to be doing if I'm brand new to town. It is listed as an audience of having preschool event or preschool infants and toddlers. So clearly this one is a broader scope, a bigger age range, and Anthony's going to fit right in. So I'm going to go ahead and add this to my events. Again, all of this information is pulled in from the event. Nothing here needs to be added separately into Aspen. Oop. Get too many going here. Okay, here's my event search again. Story time on the patio. You don't necessarily have to click into it. So here I can get part of the description. Might be a little small for you to see. But it says this story time is recommended for children's ages 2 to 5. Again, perfect. All I have to do is click add to my events right here. I can see that it was saved successfully. Wonderful. One more around town. Again, these are especially attractive to me because I'm brand new to town. So I kind of get a double whammy here. I get to bring Anthony to story time and also learn more about my community. So I'm going to go ahead and add that one to my events too. Now, I don't know if you noticed this, but as I was adding these to my events, the button text switched here to in your events. So if I come back to this later, I can see that I've already saved it. I can click on in your events here, and you can see the 4 events that I've saved today. If you remember the first one that I clicked on, because I hadn't narrowed it down to exactly the age range that I was looking for, I was kind of like, yeah, that one might be a little bit young. I think that was this one, Baby Story Time with ECFE. I can go ahead and remove that. And then there's no need for me to see that one anymore. But then down within here, I have the 3 events that I saved. Okay, let's go back to, I'm going to go all the way back to those. I went straight from the search results, so that means I kind of lost my search results there. So let's look again to see. Okay, so now we're within context. Again, I'm looking at events, and we have, in addition to putting events within the context of searching the catalog, we put additional content within the context of searching events. So I'm searching events and I get these other pieces of content, and one maybe that I see as Candace is this story time to go kit. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this. And this is fantastic for me. Again, I was searching events, but I get access to other things in context that I might want at the library. And these are a kit that I can take home. I can do story time at home with my kid, which Candace loves. Maybe she's scrolling through here. Oh, story time to go get for camping. I can see that it's available. We are going camping in June. So this is going to be, it's Anthony's first time. It's going to be great prepping him for what to expect when going camping. So I'm going to go ahead and I can place a hold on that as well. Just go ahead and submit that hold request. So again, you can see, and then here we go, recommended even more storytime kits, similar to what I already checked out, if there were more storytime kits that I wanted. So the key here isn't just that we, throw events into the catalog and call it good. It's that we direct the patron on a journey, that they're looking for story time. They actually find what they're looking for with the events. We give them a way to find the events that are particular to them, but then we're always connecting it to other pieces within the catalog, to other materials they might want to check out. They also have storytime websites in here. So if that came up in Explore More, they could click on that too. So that's how Candace uses the library for the first time. Let's go ahead and see what Miguel does. So we talked about Miguel, excuse me. He said that, or he has Sandra Brown visiting the library, and this is a really big deal for them. So he wants to make sure that this author visit is front and center for the library as soon as patrons hit the page. So again, not as in context, but this is one of them that they want anyone and everyone to see it. You could, of course, search Sandra Brown and find these, but this is just a little bit more prominent. So here we have a list, and we've added 2 events to the list, and we'll look at those events in a little bit more detail in a second. We've also organized some reading lists for patrons. So these are lists that have been added to this browse category. So we have one on suspense and thrillers. Cassandra Brown, if you know her, she kind of writes in a couple different categories. So she has suspense and thrillers, and then primarily romance. I think she does some historical romance too. So you can have those organized here with a list of lists. And then we also have maybe the rest of her content. So again, I can grab the reader's attention as soon as they get here with the different kinds of content mixed together for Sandra Brown's visit. Let's take a little bit of a closer look at these 2 events. So I'm going to open the first one. This one you can see from here easily has the date, Sandra Brown Trivia Night for Books and Beer. And this looks like like the events we were looking at with Candace a minute ago. You can add it to your event. For this one, it's a special edition of Books and Beer. They're trying to get people excited, trying to get people to know about the event. So a few days ahead of time, they've taken their normal trivia night, and it's going to be for Sandra Brown. And again, just a normal event, nothing special there. Something else that Aspen offers is the ability to integrate with reservations. And that's what this second event is right here. This event requires registration. So this is, you can facet down to events that require registration, but it looks a little bit different if you're viewing an event that requires registration, because it does one different thing. So add to your events and register. What it's going to do, you can see, is it does take you out to the event platform. We would love to have registration completely within Aspen, so we didn't have to go out to the event platform. It's not something that's supported in the APIs today. So if you're working with one of the vendors that we integrate with and you want to say, hey, we'd like for you to build an API so that patrons can actually register within Aspen, we would like to do that. But they do have to come over here and do their registration, their patron registration on this side. But we don't want the patron to get confused. So what we say here is it was added successfully. This event was saved to your events, but it's not the same as registering. And it explains how we took them to the other page, and it gives them a link to that page. So we want to be very clear that this is not necessarily registering them for the event, but that the event does require registration. And you can see here on this page that button switched to 2 buttons, one that says check registration, that again takes you over to that event page, and the other one that says go to your events, just like the previous event. So that's a little bit what the registration looks like. I will say with patron registration, there is a caveat, and that is, in order for us to connect the registration to the individual patron, you do need to collect the patron barcode at the time of registration. That is so we have the one-to-one connection between the patron and your account. A lot of some libraries don't like to collect that information for registration because it's a little bit of a barrier to registering for events. They'll just maybe collect an email and then email them their event registration. The issue with Aspen is that email is not unique frequently families, like a parent will use the same email for their kids, and then who do we show it for? So that's one caveat about the registration. Now, even if you don't allow that registration to display within your account, we still do show which events require registration, and we still, for events that require registration, will always take you back out to that registration page. So again, Miguel was able to create this lovely browse category full of different types of content, including our events here for his Sandra Brown visit. Okay, one more thing I want to show you. And we can't do this one live because it was something one of our libraries did a while back. I just love this. I'm going to use this screenshot forever. But unfortunately, the event is over, so we can't show it to you live. So the Main Library Alliance for Morristown created this browse category, which is another one of those list of lists. So they had an author series coming in, and for each author, they created a separate list. And then that list has its own unique cover that they uploaded within Aspen to just create this really pretty browse category page that just so beautifully highlights all of the different authors. And then again, I wish I could show it to you live, but if you click in, you can see the books. You could also add events to those, kind of any content you want related to each of those visits. All right, so that was a super quick introduction to Aspen and events. I would like to open it up to any questions.
So, Jordan, we have a few. Well, the first one is, how do you set up event integration?
Okay.
And is it difficult?
Is it difficult? Okay, got it. No, it's not difficult. It's super simple. It's going to vary a little bit depending on which platform you have. For the super easy ones, it's really almost like setting up an RSS feed. That's not exactly what it is, but you kind of put in the URL for your events, and then we pull it in. For others like LibCal, you have to get an API, set up an API key over in LibCal because they might have different event integrations. But then you just enter the API information and it all pulls in automatically. Like everything that I showed you today, the only setup that I did was over in this case, LibCal in the event platform. Everything else, once that entering just one or two fields is set up, everything else happens automatically.
Oh, we have a few more that come in. So does the patron get a reminder if they add an event to their events?
They do not yet. I would love to do that. That is in our plans. We are working on some integrations with email that would, well, okay, I don't want to say they won't. They won't get one from Aspen. If they get one now, it would come from your event registration platform. So it's not to say they won't, just not one from Aspen. We are working on them from Aspen. In the future, we would like to be able to show to kind of do the same thing we did almost on that browse category where we're saying, hey, your event's in a few days. Here's some books maybe you want to read in preparation, or here's some other events that you might find that are related, that are fun, like that Books and Beer one. If you're a huge Sandra Brown fan, even if you don't usually go to Books and Beer, it might be fun to show up for that one, just to, meet your people.
That would be good. I'm really interested in that one, by the way.
I know you are, Bill.
All right. So if we want to include the event registration feature in Aspen, we'd have to require a library card number for registrants, correct?
Not exactly. So we can tell on any of the event platforms whether or not an event requires registration. So the patron can find the event. The event will send them to the registration page. It just won't tell them that they are registered. So if you, we can maybe get out of here. If I can find that page again. I think we were in here. So you can check registration. If you have that, if you've requested the barcode and we know that you have registered, it will say right here that you are registered. When we don't collect that barcode, all we can say is check registration. So the only piece that is missing is confirming to the patron whether or not they have registered. And let me know if that doesn't make sense.
Makes sense to me, Tim. we'll let that one simmer for a minute. And, so the next one, yeah, so Tim says it's good.
Great.
All right, so the next one has to do with functional differences between vendors with the APIs. I'm not sure if we're in too much detail, but if you can kind of give an umbrella view of what it might be.
Yeah, I definitely can. One is that registration. That registration piece is the big one that is not available for library calendar at all because it's an API integration where we just have to go back and forth and we have to, call out to them, be like, hey, is this patron registered? And they come back and say yes or no. And the API integrations are a little bit better. The API integrations, again, are with Attend by Communico and LibCal by SpringShare. The functionality that I showed you today is all there for those. We've done the best we can to make them similar. The biggest difference is that registration piece. That's really it.
And then there's a question if we're working with Advanced, and I'd like you to kind of follow on to about if there is a calendar that folks want added, what would be that process and kind of the timeline. And I think that will help people with this.
Sure. So we've gotten a couple of different requests. The latest big one was Communico. That was why we completed that one this year. The big requests that I've heard are Advanced, Google Calendar for some small libraries that just need that basic integration. I think there's a WordPress plugin called the Library Calendar we've gotten a couple of requests for. And then there's a couple of regional things that would be more like feeds. There's also, we have plans to develop our own, a little bit of an event platform, because then we can kind of do whatever we want. The registration wouldn't be an issue, that kind of thing. As far as timelines, we kind of look, okay, when are we going to do our next event integration? And then we go through all of the requests and say, okay, this one's the most popular. Right now, again, that's today. We just finished one, so we're not going to do another one right away. Right now, that one would probably be Advanced. But if you had one that you wanted us to integrate with, if you are a Bywater customer, please put in a ticket with your request and the platform that you're on, and we will take a look into it. We are also more likely to integrate with event platforms that have those full APIs. We can if they don't, just like we did for Library Calendar, but if they have those APIs, it's just so much easier and we can really do more.
And then is there a timeline for Bywater events?
Next year we're working on it.
And then Jordan, could you kind of go, I know we talked about the integration and that's pretty tight, but I noticed we have events on this menu here. And then there's also a way to advertise via placards. Can you just share other ways people can do events if it's not integrated, if it's not, the SpringShare, the Library Market, or Communico?
Sure. Yeah. So let's look at that. I just love the story time example for that one. Here is the placard. So again, a placard is like a little piece of marketing. So it's just this banner right here that the library designs, and you set up keywords for this banner to display. So in this case, East Central Regional Library created this banner. They said this banner should show up when anyone does a search for story time, and then it does, which is great. They also have, you can also do website indexing within Aspen. So if you have a page of events within a different website, we can index that and set it up. And I think this one here is the same. It has this website icon. So we'll click on that. And then you see it takes you to their early literacy, which I think is related to story time. I think some of these, actually, this is not like a summer reading, but like a reading program for early literacy. But you could just as easily index a website about events.
And then I've also seen some libraries that use Web Builder to have a event in there too, with a lot of Google. I've seen them with the Google.
Yeah.
I don't see any other questions. Jesse, did you see?
No, that was it.
All right. And I just a few more things before we wrap up. We do have one more Aspen webinar in the Explore the Possibilities webinar series, Aspen Discovery and the Lida app. Even if you think you know everything about Lida, we are adding stuff all of the time. Even if you are keeping up with everything that we're doing, Morgan, if you know Morgan, she always puts on a good show. So worth coming to any way you look at it to hear Morgan talk about the Lida app. So I would just like to say thank you for attending today. If you have any questions about anything we've talked about, with Aspen and events or anything Aspen in general, please contact sales@bywatersolutions.com. And we also have a phone number and link down there for you. So thank you so much for your time. And it was a pleasure talking to you about Aspen and events today.
Thanks, Jordan.
Bye.